Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the joint scrutiny meeting. Firstly, I need to run through some housekeeping. Please ensure that all mobile phones are set to silent in the event of evacuation alarm sounding as continuous sound. All persons should vacate the building by the way of the nearest available exit, which is down the main stairs and out of the back door of the town hall, and proceed directly to the assembly point in front of the cathedral. If the alarm is an intermittent sound, this indicates a lockdown. Attendees should stay in their seat and await further instruction. As per normal rules, if you wish to speak, please ensure that you raise your hand and you will be invited to address the meeting by the chair. If a vote is required, all votes would be taken via show of hand unless a recorded vote is requested, which will be taken in the normal way. As per for full council meetings, you have laminated copies of for, against, abstain on your table. For is green, against is red, abstain is yellow. If you are required to vote, please raise the correct color document to make the vote counting easier for the team. Finally, I would remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that when you speak, you use your microphone. Thank you. I will now move on to the first item of the agenda, which is the appointment of the chair of the joint meeting of the scrutiny committees, which is in accordance with Part 4, Section 8, Scrutiny Committee Procedure Rules, Section 13, joint meeting of the scrutiny committees, which states that the chair will be appointed from among the chairs of the committees who are holding the meeting. Those chairs present tonight are Councillor Yassin, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Barkham, and Councillor Day. Can I therefore ask the committee if there are any nominations? Yes?
I would like to nominate Councillor Yassin.
Thank you. Is there a member of the committee that would like to second the nomination?
Yes, I second that.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations for this appointment? As there are no further nominations, can I ask if any members of the committee objects to the nomination of Councillor Yassin as the chair for this meeting? No. I see no formal objections, so could I therefore ask Councillor Yassin to take the position of chair for this meeting? Thank you.
Good evening and welcome, members. The Scrutiny Committees are meeting tonight to discuss the Draft Budget 2023-24, Medium-Term Financial Strategy 2023-26, and the Second Independent Improvement and Assurance Panel Report. This meeting is an opportunity for all members of each Scrutiny Committee to come together to scrutinise the reports. To help with the smooth running of the meeting, each section of the report will be looked at individually. You will have been sent a running order for the meeting, which I will follow throughout the meeting, taking each section of the report in turn. Questions and discussion will take place on each section, and then any recommendations for that section will be made before moving on to the next section. If you are making a recommendation, please can you be very clear and concise as to what the recommendation is. You will have already been sent a link to the agenda via email on Friday the 13th of January when the agenda for this meeting was published. You can also access the document through the modern.gov app on your laptop within the joint scrutiny meeting of the Scrutiny Committee section, agenda dated 23rd January 2023. A copy of the running order was sent to everyone on Friday the 20th of January. Can I therefore assume that everyone here has access to the documents for this meeting? Thank you. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, and for the benefit of those people watching the meeting on YouTube, I can confirm that the Leader of the Council, Councillor Fitzgerald, and Cabinet members are also in attendance at the meeting, as well as Eva Woods, Peterborough Youth MP. I will now move on to item 2 on the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Chair, we have received apologies from Councillor Hemroch, Councillor Lane, Co-opted Member Parish Councillor Michael Samways, Co-opted Member Esther Norton, Co-opted Member Stuart Dawes, Co-opted Member Sandy Burns, Co-opted Member Chris DeWald, Co-opted Member Peter Contley, and Co-opted Member Andy Stone. Also, Councillor Amjad Iqbal is in attendance for Councillor Hemroch.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest and whipping declarations? No. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is item 4, Draft Budget 2023-24 and Medium-Term Financial Strategy 2023-26. Can you please refer to the cover report dated 23rd January 2023? Councillor Coles, would you like to please make your introduction to the Draft Budget 23-24 and Medium-Term Financial Strategy 23-24 as referred to in the cover report for item 4?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I would. I'm delighted to be able to present to you tonight a balanced draft budget for 23-24 and the medium-term financial strategy for consideration at this meeting. Before I outline the key aspects of the report, I want to pay tribute to the organisation and all involved with getting us to this position. Officers and the corporate leadership team have worked incredibly hard over the past year to develop strategies and plans to meet our financial challenge. And their efforts have paid dividends. Not only are we able to present a balanced budget, but we have made huge strides towards becoming financially sustainable in the longer term. My thanks and appreciation don't just go to officers, though. I'd like to extend this to members from all parties who have worked collaboratively, contributed ideas, and provided challenge, playing a vital role in this process. This year, the Financial Sustainability Working Group has met monthly to consider the Council's financial position, review the developing savings and transformation plans, and develop proposals to contribute towards achieving financial sustainability. I'm pleased to say that this budget includes proposals suggested by opposition groups, as outlined in section 3 of the main report. And officers are still continuing to work on proposals with members, such as options to generate and store renewable energy and introduce care farms. Now, moving on to the main event, as you'll all know, the bar was raised even higher this year in terms of our financial challenge, with soaring rates of inflation driving up the cost of delivering services, increased energy prices, and of course we're still managing high demand for services as a result of our rapidly rising population and the ongoing impact of the pandemic. Despite this perfect storm, it's a real achievement we're able to propose a balanced budget and continue to provide good quality services for our residents. This budget includes a 4.99% increase in council tax, which is in line with the expectations set out by the government. We know that residents are also facing their own financial challenges, and we wish we didn't have to ask them to pay more council tax. But we cannot deliver a balanced budget and continue to provide the services that people want and need without doing so. A key area of focus for the budget has been managing inflation and keeping a tight control over spending, with managing demand for services being another area of focus. Officers have carried out a detailed review of the demand-led services and are continuing to build on successful programs such as the Adults Positive Challenge by increasing the levels of preventative and early intervention services. But the key shift for this budget has been the focus on service transformation. So in the coming year, we will be supporting people who are struggling the most, including through a network of our community hubs. We're investing £1.5 million to create a growth, regeneration and economic development service to drive forward our ambitious plans to increase the number of homes, businesses and to create jobs. Investment in a range of measures to improve energy efficiency. Ensuring our frontline services are best supported by investing in our Human Resources Department and restructuring the finance team. We're maximising the return from our assets, and we're also transforming our home-to-school transport service. We recognise that we are now in a much better financial position. However, a number of risks remain for our council and all local authorities, including high rates of inflation, rising levels of demand and people requiring more complex care and support. There's uncertainty around future government funding and also the reforms to adult social care. We also need to be able to deliver on the savings proposals we are set to agree for next year. We have kept a close eye on our budget planning this year, and we will continue to do this so we can manage our risks. I hope that you have found the contents of the budget report familiar, and that's because it builds on what we've already shared with you and the public before Christmas as part of our budget consultation. Which leads me nicely to the feedback we've received from our residents, businesses and community groups. This has been greatly received and has been included in Appendix C to this report. I know officers are reviewing this feedback and plan to publish a response within the final budget report, which will come to Cabinet on the 13th of February. And lastly, it would be remiss of me not to mention at this stage what is presented before you is still a draft. Although we are not expecting there to be huge changes, there are a few technicalities and estimates to be finalised ahead of Council. We have been as open as possible with you about these and highlighted those expected changes in section 2.4 of the report. So, colleagues, I'm delighted to be able to present you with this proposed budget and medium-term financial strategy, which most of all reflects one of our core city priorities, a sustainable future city council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Do we have any questions? Councillor Dennis-Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cole, for that update. Please take this as critical, friend, not as just criticism. A couple of things, if I may. On page 5, reviewing all the contracts to ensure they reflect best value and meeting established needs. One of the hardest things, as we know, is keeping contracts up to date, particularly when they've been outsourced. So I'd be very interested to know how that was going to be done and how opposition parties can obviously help to continue that. And if I may, Chair, on page 16, just something that struck me was the pay award of 3%. Let me just, hang on, let me whiz down the page and say, top of page 16, pay award of 3%, inflation, expenditure and sales fees, charges, income, a baseline of 9%. You know, what kind of pressure is this going to put on the budget when, you know, obviously people are now striking for 10%? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll turn to Celia Booth, if I may, to answer that question on the contracts and also on the pay settlement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So in terms of the contract arrangements, we have had CIPFA in to review all our contracts and company structures, and all those reports are going to FSWG and to the corporate leadership team in due course. Some of those contract arrangements are coming to an end. For instance, the procurement service we have with Serco has been taken in-house back in November, and we are looking at other services as well. And the MPS service is coming back in-house from the 1st of February, so we just got another 1 week with that. We're also looking at Meacham Homes and we're looking at Peterborough Limited and all the contract arrangements we have in place. In terms of the pay award, I think that's quite interesting, and I attended a local government association finance conference a couple of weeks ago, and it was noted by the whole sector that local government, although we have had a pay award of 3%, no local councils are looking to go out on strike. And we also provide essential services to the community. So I think that is quite telling, and I think that's puts the whole sector in a positive light. Having said that, we put 3% in the budget next year, and seeing what's happening in the rest of the market, seeing where inflation and the cost of living is going, I think that's probably is on the low side, and that is one of the additional pressures and risks that we've identified in the budget that we probably need to revisit.
Thank you. Councillor Cleon, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Page number 9, budget consultation. It was really interesting to see, again, not criticism, but just sort of really interesting to see that in a population of thousands, we only had 50 responses to the consultation that took place. Despite being quite work intensive, we'd engaged in web-based forms and engaged with community groups. Do we know a reason why we're receiving less responsive? Obviously, taking in this area of austerity, taking the public opinion on board is very important in order to steer how we're going to manage in the future. And do we have any ideas on how to improve the uptake? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kayam. And actually, I'm in agreement with you about the low levels. I think they're indicative. They're clearly not representative. I have the same arguments in the combined authority when we look at consultations, and if you're lucky, you get 0.1% consultations, and how one can draw inference from that is really quite difficult. If you look at the simulator, 200 plus the 50, then we're looking round about 0.1% of the population. How on earth you make budget consultations so interesting that everyone wants to contribute to it? I welcome your input. There's other ways that we can do that, but we have tried, and I think the simulator has shown a fourfold uptake, which is great, but also other councils are asking the same question and looking at what we've done to see if they can improve it. But budgets are not the most exciting thing. Cecilia, have you got anything to add?
I think budgets are very exciting. But I think Councillor Coles is absolutely right. It's all local authorities are struggling to get people engaged, and sometimes with a low level of response we're getting are not at all representative, because it's and the leader is just saying to me it's the best it's ever been. I think the way forward is to develop the budget simulator better. We saw that people much prefer to use something that's a bit more interactive. It's the first year we've used it, and other local authorities have also been impressed with the level of response we had, and we've seen it covered on TV news as well. So I think that's going forward. That is something we will look at to make it even more interactive. And again, I echo Councillor Cole's words that I would welcome any suggestions where you think we can make the consultation more interesting, where we can get more people engaged.
Can I come back on that, if that's okay? Thanks very much for those responses. I think the budget simulator idea that you've given is interesting, and the fact that it's the first year you may see improvement. The only suggestion that I can think of is implementing regular consultations in a sort of a plethora of operations that the council undertakes. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I would. Sorry, Chair. I would agree. I think. It's extremely difficult. You know, the amount of comms that was done by the council to try to get people to respond was actually quite a lot. And I know I've had conversations online with people saying that they never saw any of it, which is disappointing when huge efforts were made. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just asking a question on page 19 about MPS. It talks about the fact that we're working to bring the service back in-house on the 31st of January 2023. Just wondered if that is still, a manageable task. And also, could we have some explanation about why we're bringing MPS back in-house? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Day. We're actually moving ahead of that date, and we're virtually there. So, yeah. I'll pass on to Cecilia for the second part.
Thank you. So we are within the timescales for bringing MPS back in-house, and the reason for doing so is that there has been limited oversight on the client side of the whole property service. The whole service was outsourced to MPS, and we had one person on the council side to oversee it without necessarily the necessary expertise to look after a sizable portfolio that we have. So it's not necessarily that the service was poor or too expensive or anything like that. It was not quite fit for purpose anymore for the county council that Peterborough City Council is now. So that was the main reason, really. With 2Ping, the staff who are eligible for 2P are coming across to the council from the 1st of February, and we're also recruiting to a number of new posts to get a property service that supports the council's priorities.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Jones again, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page 17, I just noted that our borrowings are running at 441 million. How are we going to make sure that our investments actually run ahead of the borrowings, obviously, to balance and improve the books?
Thank you, Councillor. Cecilia, would you like to answer that one?
Thank you. Yes, we have a sizable debt portfolio. And one of the priorities in the capital strategy and in the budget as well is that we reduce our borrowing. In reality, we have more borrowing than we have, more debt than we have assets. So if we had to repay all our debt, we would in effect not be viable. There's a number of reasons for that, and a lot of it has to do with schools and academies and PFIs, and where we have been left with legacy debt. But you will know from both the budget and the capital strategy that we're not looking to do any new or to undertake any new borrowing for new schemes. The capital programme should always be funded by capital receipts or external contributions, and we should only undertake new borrowing where there is a sound business case and a short-dated payback period. So we're working proactively to reduce that debt. Also, through the asset disposal programme, we will be looking to use capital receipts to repay maturing debt.
Thank you. Councillor Kayoum, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Page number 20, please, adult social care digitisation. I was just wondering if you, the Cabinet member, could kindly sort of elaborate a little bit on what that digitisation entails, and obviously having a look at I was interested in the customer portal. What about those customers or service users for adult social care who essentially can't use digital technology? So if you could give us a little bit of an idea, and the investment in terms of costings for that as well, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll go to Charlotte for that.
Thank you. So what digitisation means really is that as much as possible, it would mean that, for example, if someone wants to do an adult social care assessment done, they would be able to start that process online. Equally, if someone's got a direct payment and they want to have a sort of account that's held online rather than everything being paper copies, they can do it that way. But absolutely, for some people that will not work, and we have to have an arrangement which means that if someone doesn't want to access things in that way, they don't need to. And I can't tell you exactly about the costs attached to that at this stage. We're still exploring what it might mean, but it's something that's a requirement as part of the adult social care reform. So it is something that we need to do anyway, but it is good practice as well in terms of sort of moving the way in which we support people forwards in line with just best practice and kind of modern ways of doing things, really, which isn't just everything being paper-based. Thank you, Charlotte. Sounds sensible.
Thank you. Councillor Knight, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question's regarding page 15. As a result of bringing the procurement in-house, what comfort can we take that we are on track with identifying and delivering savings from contract renewals and council purchases?
Thanks very much. And we've £1.7 million worth of savings which we've delivered, and we have a new member of staff who's taken responsibility. But Cecilia, have you got anything to add?
Yes, so again, as with the MPS service, having an outsourced procurement service means that we don't always have complete oversight of the portfolio. taking the service back in-house again and bringing a new manager in has enabled us to prepare an annual procurement plan. So instead of just going out and buying everything we need to buy, we will have a forward plan where we can make some hard choices as well. So going forward, we can look at the contracts we have that are due for either expiry or renewal in the coming year. We can make decisions. Can we really afford these contracts anymore? So it will be, we have moved from a very reactive service, just going out buying stuff, to being proactive in the next financial year according to the procurement plan. So I'm confident we'll be able to deliver additional savings on top of the 1.7 million we had in the current financial year.
Thank you. Can I remind all members to comply with the running order that has been sent out to you all? So I'm only taking questions on pages 3 to 12. So are there any more questions on pages 3 to 12? Councillor Jamil, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm coming back to the response Councillor Cole gave earlier about legacy debt. Now, my fear is, you know, I'm one of the ones who've sat here 12 years, and every year we were told everything's hunky-rosy, we've got a balanced budget. How or what are we doing to learn the lessons from previous years? Now, that debt has built up, and we've always said, yeah, everything. So what are we doing different now that we've not done before?
Sorry, just to be clear, you're talking about the debt burden. Cecilia, could you deal with that particular point?
So the debt portfolio has built up over a number of years, and the legacy debt is mainly relating to schools that have become academies. Yes, I don't know the number of the actual number off the top of my head. But again, when we fund the capital programme, and this is one of the main reasons we're not going to undertake any new borrowing going forward, is that if we invest in capital assets today and we take out a 10, 20, 30, 40-year loan, we will be paying off those loans for the same amount of years. So in effect, our children and grandchildren will repay the borrowing we take out today. Having said that, it's also a good thing to have debt because it means we can invest in the infrastructure and into the community. So it's not a bad thing to have debt. We have just built up too much borrowing over years, and we will be looking to reduce it accordingly.
Thank you. Any more questions on pages 3 to 12? Okay, so we don't have any more questions. Do members have any recommendations for this section? Okay. Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix A, Medium-Term Financial Strategy 23 to 26, starting on pages 15 to 28. So please ensure your questions are on pages 15 to 28, please. Councillor Day, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question's on the culture and leisure services and community hubs. I just wanted to ask, first of all, what is the idea of bringing together the operation of Flag Fen and the museum into a single service, and where will that service be located? Because I think that's really important. And then secondly was to ask about the libraries and community hubs. How is that review going? What kind of thing are we now looking at offering in the future in that area of libraries and community hubs? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I turn to Adrian Chapman to answer that question?
Actually, it's Adrian Chapman stand-in here. Councillor Allen, portfolio for this subject. Just to kick it off, I think economy of scale is the answer with regard to the heritage assets at Flag Fen and the museum. Makes absolute sense to put those together under one umbrella, and I'm sure Adrian will elaborate on that. But the principle of doing that is clear. The library service, which I undertook a complete review with Councillor Howard only last year, was again to look at economy of scale, to make sure that we better purpose the libraries and that they offer facilities for advice and such like for communities. So I think the direction of travel is a no-brainer, but I'm sure Adrian can give you the granular details.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Actually, it was a great summary. I think what I'd add is that in both cases, both the museum and Flag Fen and also our library service, there is a need to review and refresh and update the offer. Our hope with bringing the museum and Flag Fen together is that we can harness the full capacity of those sites in terms of the heritage offer they bring to our city, which has, you know, shaped our history over the years. The museum hasn't really had a significant update for a long time. I remember going in there when I was in school and it feels pretty much the same today. And Flag Fen, with all of its access challenges, you know, done a great job through Peterborough Limited, its current operator, but again needs to improve, I think, its offer. So bringing those two together, I think, alongside the economies of scale, will hopefully improve the offer. And with libraries, we've thought long and hard about how we can use our libraries differently. They're all really well located. They're seen not as necessarily austere council buildings, but accessible community destinations or venues in their own right. And in the current climate of people needing help and support more and more, or with people wanting to learn new skills, to get better employment, or whatever it might be, we think they're the right locations to place services. So we are currently piloting in a small number of libraries a new model which brings different services together so that local people can access the help and advice and support they might need as early as possible and get to a resolution before it becomes a referral into, for example, social care. More on that, members, in the coming weeks as we run through the pilots.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis-Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for running ahead of myself before. I'm going back to page 16 and on the key assumptions. And I suppose it goes back to council tax base. It goes on from something that Councillor Jackie Allen said before. When we are building new houses, we're estimating growth of 1,000 homes PA from 24-25. Given the fact that due to slower housing growth than expected, how realistic is this as a key assumption? And if I may, on the transport levy, budgeted for an increase of 9%, but CPCA could be as high as RPI, which is now obviously close to 12%. So again, what kind of budget pressures is that likely to bring? And, you know, as far as we're concerned, how bulletproof is it?
Thank you, Ken. Well, nothing's bulletproof, is it? But if you were to look at history, we've always built around about 1,000 houses every year. That's fairly standard, and it's been for a long period of time. Looking towards the future, you can never be absolutely sure. But in terms of inflationary pressures, Cecilia, can you answer that question on the potential impact?
Yes, so as Councillor Coles has just said, nothing is bulletproof, and these are the assumptions we build into the budget, and there are risks attached to all of them. I would also think that COVID would have slowed down house building. We know that Peterborough is an area of growth, and we have a great deal of housing demand and housing needs. So this is based on partly on historical house building and where we need to be going forward as well. And through the new local plan, hopefully getting the balance of homes right in terms of the banding, not just the lower end. Did I answer the...
On the levy. Would you like me to repeat it?
Sorry, no, I just didn't quite hear the last bit.
That's okay.
The leader has just clarified. The transport levy
yes.
has now been set at 2%, which was lower than we assumed in the budget. 2%. And I've just been told that the board is on Wednesday. But what we've been told by CPCA is that the transport levy will be 2%, which has given us a benefit in our budget compared to the assumptions we made.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to the bottom of page 25 on children's services. I know there's been quite an increase in demand for families accessing the short breaks, respite, home care and direct payments, but that it says the council hopes to reduce this in future years. So I just wanted to ask how, given that I imagine this is linked to an increase in population of children with complex needs, and reassurance that this doesn't mean that we're raising the bar on saying yes to families when they require respite or home care. Thank you.
Councillor Ayres, can I turn to you on this question?
Yes, but I'm going to turn to Jonathan Lewis to answer that as well, please, first of all.
Yeah, I think, Councillor, your assertion's right. We're not looking to reduce or change the bar. This is about meeting the needs of those young children that present. Obviously, if we can get more activities, particularly around things like the voluntary sector, other areas, we will look to enhance the offer there. But essentially, we are meeting demand. That's where, in line with our growth in numbers in care, or those children with disabilities, we will seek to match those. So no reduction in service, more an adjustment in line with demand.
Thank you. Councillor Rangzeb, please.
Thank you. Part of my question has already been asked by Councillor Jones, but I'm just looking at on page 16. Inflation in expenditure baseline of 9%. And I'm thinking of the living wages going up from 950 to 1040, which is 9.7%. Is that appropriate assumption?
Cecilia, can you answer that in terms of our predictions for the living wage?
I think, Emma, do you have the answer to that?
We've throughout the course of this year, we've done a detailed review of all the contracts that are baked into the budget. So we initially started by factoring in the 9% increase, and then contracts have been reviewed on a by contract basis. So I'm assured that what we've built into the budget is in line with what those contracts say. It should be sufficient to meet those contracts, and we have set aside an inflation reserve in case there is increases over and above the assumptions within the budget in areas such as adult social care or pay inflation. As I think previously mentioned, we've put 3% pay award in the budget, and that could come in higher. So it is a budget. It's based on the best assumptions to date, but we have got a risk mitigation there if these the actuals do come in higher than that.
Thank you. Councillor Sanford, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just before I ask my question, I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to commend Councillor Coles and the actual officers for the hard work that has gone in to this budget, because as a member of the Financial Sustainability Group, I do remember at the beginning of the year we started off with a deficit of somewhere in the region of 20 million, so it is a really good achievement. I'd just like to ask a question though. At the bottom of page 22, it lists the financial risks that are being faced by the council in drawing up its budget, and I noticed and on page 23, one of the financial risks is listed as Brexit, but that's all it says. Could you just outline how Brexit has impacted on the council budget?
As far as I know, Councillor Sanford, not at all, but I will turn to my advisors on either side to see if there's a particular point they wish to make on that. Thank you.
I think Brexit remains a key risk. We did debate whether to take it out or to leave it in, and I think it's important that it's still there, maybe not as a headline risk, but it is still a risk, the availability of labour, the availability of goods and services generally. So we're still, I suppose, living through the impacts of Brexit as we are now. So I think it would be wrong to take it out as a risk altogether.
Yeah, just come back on that. Wouldn't you recognise, though, that if you look at adult social care, for instance, one of the reasons adult social care is in such a crisis is shortage of staff, which is due to Brexit. One of the reasons that the health service is in a mess is due to shortage of staff, which is partly due to Brexit. So I don't think you should take it out. I think you should actually exemplify it more.
I appreciate your position, and that's why it's staying there. But what I was saying earlier was that it doesn't appear to have affected it in the past. You'll be aware that one of the big challenges for getting sufficient staffing is in the care sector, and that has been going on for some time. It's not necessarily because of Brexit. There are other reasons like how much people get paid and the nature of the work. So we keep an eye on it. It is a risk, but what I'm saying is it's not the sort of the level of risk that we've seen from other areas. It doesn't appear to have impacted us in the past. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis-Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. You know when you highlight something on mod.gov and then you don't realise why you've highlighted it, but I've just found it. At the end of 2023-34, just a typo in there that you might want to correct. How much are the reserve balances and how much are we likely or hoping to increase it by in the medium term, please?
Forgive me, which page was that?
It's the just above point 3 on page 17, Andy. It's at the end of 2023, assuming you mean 24, not 34. Revenue reverse balances forecast at 50 million. What are the reserves and what we're going to increase them by in the medium term, please?
I'll turn to Cecilia for the answer.
So we have a range of different reserves for different purposes, and some are usable and some are unusable. And we have got the new reserves policy that goes into the budget setting process as well. The one to keep an eye on is the general fund balance, which is not earmarked, it's not ring-fenced, that's just the rainy day fund that we need to prop up the net revenue budget. We have in previous years depleted the general fund balance quite significantly. We were able to top it up a bit at the end of the 21-22 financial year, to 7.3 million, which is 4% of the net revenue budget. And we are looking to increase it to 5% of the net revenue budget, up to £8 million at the end of this financial year, providing we have a corresponding underspend to top up the reserve. So we, like most local authorities, we need to keep general fund reserves in line with the risks that are facing us. And as you have seen in this budget report and as discussed today, the risks are significant. So we are looking to boost reserves.
Thank you. I don't know. Okay. Councillor Rush, please.
Thank you very much. Page 25, the Energy from Waste facility. Because of the excellent money this facility is producing for this council, do you think that if there was a windfall tax, that these profits would be liable for a windfall tax?
Thank you, Councillor. As far as we know, the amount of money that we're getting isn't sufficiently high to suffer from a windfall tax. But Cecilia, can I turn to you on that one?
No, I think that's right. Yes.
Thank you. We don't have any more questions on this section. Do any members have any recommendations at all? No? Councillor Jones?
Are we going up to page 19, Chair? Sorry, on this one.
Pages 15 to 28 was this section.
Yeah. May I ask a question, please? Yeah. Thank you. Just something on page 19, review of outsourcing arrangements. Just one thing. One is Opportunity Peterborough, along with, we hope that Vivacity was going to be self-sustainable. We're bringing it back in. How are we going to ensure that it doesn't become a burden to the taxpayer by bringing it back in-house, which is reasonable? And the only other thing is how, in the name of all that's holy, when we look at some of the things we're doing there, is how have we got so far away from what I would call standard business practice? We're getting a procurement manager and a procurement team and what have you. Because we knew a long time ago that the gravy train had hit the buffers, as Cecile said right at the beginning, the financial pressures aren't going to go away anytime soon.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, in terms of Opportunity Peterborough, we need to have an arm of the council that assists in growth and development. And Opportunity Peterborough provides that, and it's in the process, as you see, of coming into council where it's going to be of net benefit. So there isn't a huge amount of change there. When you look at procurement, then what this means is more efficiency, if you like, and then having more direct control over our procurement. So again, that brings more efficiency and more savings for us rather than outsourcing it, which is where there's always a premium for every outsourcing contract you have, which is to deal with the cost of that particular organisation. So I hope that's asked your question. If there's any further detail, I can ask Cecilia to deal with it.
I think just adding to that, Councillor Coles, is that it's not a new procurement team. We 2P the staff back into the council, and we have at the moment 3 vacancies, and we're looking to do something different with those vacancies to make it a more efficient service. So we have also taken out the profit element that Serco would have applied to that contract. And what we are finding, and again, things that have been fit for purpose for the council in the past is not necessarily fit for purpose anymore in financial terms. An outsourced service is not necessarily designed to be efficient in the way they work, because being more efficient, taking posts out of the structure, for instance, is reducing the profit margin for the outsourcing company. So it's about making, creating a leaner service for the council without that profit element for an external provider.
Yes, fine, thank you. It's just if it's non-statutory, then obviously it's easier to get rid of, isn't it?
Thank you. Do members have any recommendations?
Could I just come back on that? Although it's not a statutory service, we wouldn't be able to operate the council without the procurement service. And some elements of the procurement service are very statutory. For instance, the procurement limits in ODU regulations and tendering exercise and everything. So although procurement would not be seen under the heading of a statutory service, we wouldn't be able to function without it, the same as we wouldn't be able to function without a payroll service and an HR service and services like that.
Forgive me, Chair, I was talking about Opportunity Peterborough, not
right,
me.
sorry.
That's all right, my mistake.
Can I turn to Councillor Fitzgerald just to clarify that point, Chair?
Thanks, Dennis. Can I just say that the decision to bring Opportunity Peterborough in, as Cecilia referred to it, is about oversight and on the client side, e.g. the council. So it's a political decision started by me in order to strengthen our economic team. You will have read or heard that at the business board, the business OP dinner, we announced further investment in terms of capacity of over £1 million, because if we don't have the economic arm to drive the city forwards, we won't get the revenue that we need to support our budget. So it's a good thing that we're taking direct control in terms of guiding and steering it through Adrian and his team, that will now have a closer tie to Opportunity Peterborough, which will remain as a brand, but it's always been part of the council's economic arm. This just strengthens it by more investment and making it clear that we're going in the right direction with it. Hope that helps.
That's clear, thank you. It's just obviously we're seeing the end of the outsourcing, the sort of headlong rush to outsource everything, and we're now starting to insource.
Just one further point. Like Cecilia's thing about the business case for borrowing, if there's a clear case with revenue to pay it back, that would be the same. Outsourcing is the same. If there was a clear business case that it worked better in outsource, then we would do it. But I think from when it predates me, it's good that we're looking at everything, and is it fit for purpose? Is it best value? And now's the time to review all those things. And in some cases, we found it's better value to bring it back in. So Aragon, which will get looked at as well, which, not setting any hairs running, but we should look at that. But I believe, for example, that's fit for purpose as it is today.
Thank you. Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix B, Draft Revenue and Capital Budget Report 23 to 24, starting on pages starting on page 29 to 64. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce any area of this section? Are you happy to proceed to questions?
Please go straight to questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Sanford, please.
Yes, thank you. My question's on page 49 in the section headed Infrastructure and Climate. What it says is we will look to use automatic number plate recognition cameras in council car parks. This will free up enforcement officer time to focus on other areas of the city and its neighbourhoods. Now, I can remember on a number of previous occasions being sat at these budget scrutiny meetings, and we've been told that, you know, more enforcement officers are going to be deployed in areas like Paston and Bretton, but all we ever seem to see is that you see teams of them going around in threes and patrolling around the city and centre. So what guarantee can we have that this is actually going to happen? And could we have a figure on the number of enforcement officers that are going to be redeployed?
Thank you for the question. Councillor Allen and Adrian Chapman, I think.
Yeah, I can't give you the figures of additional officers. I'm sure Adrian Chapman next to me may be able to, but I think certainly the number plate recognition for certain car parks is a fantastic idea and will bring us more revenue and indeed more convenient for the people using that service. But Adrian may have the numbers you've asked for.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, so in total we have 13 civil enforcement officers. They're the officers that enforce parking offences. The vast majority of their work at the moment is based in the city centre. I would say 80% of their activity is city centre based. The ANPR introduction, aside from the benefits that Councillor Allen mentions, will free up significant proportion of their time to focus on our neighbourhoods, and we're committing to that in this budget document. You know, I would expect a significant upturn in the footfall of enforcement officers out in places like Paston, Millfield, New England, Westwood, and so on, and rural areas. They already do a lot of work outside schools, but I would expect you to see a significant increase in foot patrols as a result of these proposals if they're approved.
Thank you. Councillor Kuyum, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Page 30, please, looking at the key revenue pressures. Do forgive me if this has already been alluded to in the previous question by Councillor Jones. I didn't quite pick up about the insourcing the procurement team and getting an external procurement specialist to support this work. How is it significant in terms of the cost of this external procurement specialist and what that cost will be? That's the first question. I'd like to ask a second as well. Thank you. This is page 31 then, key revenue savings and investment, second bullet point. My question really was about how much of the central government funding has been confirmed in the development of family hubs that has been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Cecilia will answer those well, and we have actually recruited that specialist as to be a director in the team now, so that's been done. But Cecilia, would you like to answer the rest?
Yes, so we brought an interim in for 6 months, and she is a procurement expert who helped us to insource the service. The cost of that was funded from the transformation reserve and we didn't charge it to the procurement service because it is transformational work. As I mentioned earlier, we have gone from being a very reactive procurement service, described sometimes as just a shopping service, to being a proactive procurement service that are looking at what we need going forward rather than just buying what services are asking to buy. So I think it's a big change in the way we're working, and the cost of the procurement officer is far outweighed by the benefits we're getting in the procurement service now. Councillor Coles mentioned earlier we had a savings target in the procurement portfolio of 1.7 million. It's been quite difficult to deliver that because we didn't have a procurement plan. We were just looking on a case-by-case basis in what was coming up, and quite often it was too late to make the savings then. So we found shorter-term one-off savings to offset the shortfall, whereas now having a plan going forward, for instance, we can look at the milestone contract, which is one of our biggest contracts. We're one of the biggest spenders in the country, where if we can take some money off those kind of contracts, we will make the savings we need in one contract rather than scratching around for the smaller savings. And I just wanted to clarify one thing that was mentioned earlier. I know the leader mentioned the review of Peterborough Limited. A review has been undertaken, and that service was found to be fit for purpose. So that report is working its way. It's a wholly owned company, yes, but it's a separate organisation but owned by the council. But that works pretty well for both sides.
Could I just come back on the answer to the first question? Thank you so much for giving that detail, and I think it's really useful. I'd still like to know how much the procurement specialist has been employed for, please. Thank you.
I shall get back to you with the detail on that in due course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Parish Councillor Boyce, please.
Chair. Excuse me, Chair. I think there was a question there about family hubs.
That was my second question on page 31.
Family hubs. Well, I think that's got to come this way. Yes? Good, thank you. Thank you. The answer is that we have received government funding for family hubs. And the figures for Peterborough is about 3.4 million. We're in the process of looking at it all now and organising it. I don't know whether Jonathan has any more to be said, but it's in the process of being developed.
Thank you. Parish Councillor Boyce, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, just one question. On page 30, the table on page 30 shows parish precepts as 704,000. Looking through the report, I cannot see where that's shown as an expenditure to the council. It's shown as an income, but not an expenditure. Could somebody explain where that's shown?
So the precept is not the cost to the council or income to the council. We're just collecting it on behalf of the parishes. So it's just showing there for completeness. The same as billing authorities pass precepts on to the county council and police and fire. This is just a precept that we collect on their behalf.
Thank you. Could I just come back on that? It's actually shown in the figures. It actually is worked out within those figures as an income.
There is an expenditure line within the corporate services. So if you're in the corporate services area, there's a budget line called corporate items, and the corresponding expenditure line for 704k is in that line.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. First thing, if I may, is really curiosity. On page 30, top of page 31, this is alongside the growing population of 17.5% since the last census. And as Marco Ceresti once remarked when he was leader of the council, and those are the ones we know about. Jest aside, is there a percentage figure that any authority can put on how many additional people are living and working in a city area at any one time, given that in the next paragraph it says making it very hard to accurately forecast demand? May I ask a supplementary on that, or should I come back to it, if I may? And then just further down the page, it says investment of in key revenue savings and investments, investment of 1.5 million to create growth, regeneration and economic development. Do we have any examples of what that investment is going to look like, please?
Thank you, Councillor. And I think you're doing a Donald Rumsfeld, Tommy, with the unknown unknowns, and I'm not entirely sure anyone can answer what we don't know and what we might guess. I would say, I'd be fairly clear to say I think the Immigration Service would be equally challenged to say what we don't know. But on your second point, I'll turn to Cecilia, or to Councillor Fitzgerald, beg your pardon.
Just, Dennis, for completeness, the example I gave you about Opportunity Peterborough is one of those investment projects. And there are a number of others, which I think a few are with Adrian still. Cecilia may have more examples, but certainly the OP economic aspects of council business, that would be one of those capacity bids.
The first one was just purely curiosity. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Councillor Sanford, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question again is on page 49 in the section marked Infrastructure and Climate. We are aware that over 25% of Peterborough's carbon emissions come from transport. And in order to tackle that, the Combined Authority has set a target of reducing car journeys by 15% by 2030. So I can't see anything in this section regarding that. So could the Cabinet confirm whether or not they support that target? And could they tell me what is being done to try and achieve it? Because what I see in the Council's capital schemes is that they're constantly putting large capital bids to the Combined Authority for things like upgrading the A16, putting additional lanes onto the parkway. So could they confirm, you know, whether we're going to see a shift from those sort of projects onto things to improve walking, cycling and public transport?
Chair, I'm struggling to see whether this fits in with the budget. No, I want to give you a sensible answer, Councillor Sanford. I'm struggling to see where I can do that, but I'll just probably turn to any member of the Cabinet in terms of Cabinet knowledge of this.
Councillor Sanford, if you listen to my interview on BBC Radio Cambridgeshire this morning, I think you'll find I said exactly those words.
Okay, could I just come back on that? I apologise if my question wasn't specific enough. So can I actually ask then, are we going to see more large capital highway schemes being put forward, or are we going to see a shift, as the Combined Authorities in its policy seems to want, towards things to improve public transport, walking and cycling?
Councillor Fitzgerald, please.
Of the £48 million that we were awarded just the other day, a proportion of that, as I'd already said previously, will go towards improving access for cycling and walking into the city centre, keeping pedestrians and motorists and cyclists separated. The other issue is that we need to kind of keep everything in balance. It's not one thing or the other. I think we are committed to doing more, but it's not overnight. And we have to keep pushing on and trying to improve things and improving public transport. You'll also notice that we had £4 million announced on Thursday or Friday as well to move the bus depot, as part again of an electrification of the bus network across Peterborough. So things are happening in order to improve public transport and making cycling and walking easier for people and, more importantly, safer.
Thank you. Can I please remind members to direct your questions to the papers in front of you, please? Councillor Iqbal, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Page 33, robustness of estimates. The opening paragraph states that the CFO has formed the overarching conclusion that the estimates included are realistic, but not completely from risk. There are several risks and challenges which have been highlighted. My question is, are there any more risks or challenges in the near future, or are these the complete list?
I'll turn to Celia Booth again on the risk register. Thank you.
Thank you. I would certainly say that there are risks that we are facing that we don't know about yet. And that's why I'm being cautious in painting too rosy a picture of the budget position. We are operating in an extremely volatile economic environment, and we have probably quite unprecedented pressures on our service. So this budget contains our best assessment of those risks that we know about, without over-egging it either. If we are massively pessimistic, we would be having a much bigger budget gap. So we try to get to a happy medium with where we think we have mitigated the key risks. For instance, with having an inflation reserve and a transformation reserve that we can prop up with. But I am absolutely 100% certain there will be emerging risks that we haven't identified yet that we need to address as we move along the life of both the annual budget and the medium-term financial strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page, this is probably, I'm wearing my shadow waste and street scene hat here. On page 48, perhaps one for you, Nigel. Second paragraph, Peterborough Limited facing significant financial pressures. And what are we doing about reducing contamination, and are in fact learning best practice from authorities such as Wolverhampton and Oxford so that we can actually increase recycling rates and the income to the city?
Councillor Simons, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. You're probably aware we've got an education team coming on. We've got an education team coming on board with 5 officers, maybe 6. They should be starting end of March, April. They're going to make a massive difference, obviously, to recycling, we hope. Every 1% is £70,000 saving. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't be taking any further questions on this item. Do the committees have any recommendations? Councillor Fox, please.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a recommendation or a request, but I'd like the parish precepts more of a breakdown about how much we get in, where it goes, where it's spent. Is that possible? Because, you know, I'd be very interested.
Cecilia, please.
As I mentioned earlier, the parish precept is just collected by us and paid over to the parishes. They set their own precept. So I think we need to go to the parishes and ask for a breakdown if you wanted more detail about that. We have absolutely no involvement in what it breaks down as.
Thank you. Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix C, Budget Consultation Feedback, starting on page 65 to 100 of the agenda pack. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce any area of this section, or are you happy to proceed to questions?
Straight to questions, please, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Ray, please.
Thank you. It's great to see the results that we do have from the consultation, albeit only 50 of them. My question is kind of around what's not in the document, and while I appreciate it wasn't a formal consultation, is there any feedback from the simulator that went out? It had 200 responses. Is there any information about what overwhelming response sort of lent towards, or what people's ideas were? I think it was a great exercise, but there's no feedback for us as members as to what people have said.
Cecilia, would you like to answer that one?
There were 2 key findings that we picked up from the simulator. One was that people who completed the survey were looking at the council tax increase of 5% as being acceptable. And the other key area people wanted to protect was the education service. Those were the 2 key findings from that particular survey.
Councillor Jamil, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could you just enlighten me on what we do to get consultation out to people who maybe not got internet or haven't got IT, or who don't speak English as a main language to be able to understand this?
We'll turn to Cecilia, please.
It's quite hard to engage people on the standard statutory consultation. The simulator was easier because we posted on social media and reposted, and because for those of you who completed the simulator, it's quite exciting to do it. You can see the impact of making certain changes, and you could see what actually happened and how difficult it is to balance the budget. I know in many years ago, it was quite common practice to have a caravan or a mobile unit out in the community where you actually proactively try to entice people to come in and speak to them. Even then, it was hard to get to engage with people. We do what we can, but as I said earlier, we would very much welcome your suggestions as well on how we can engage with people better and get more people to comment on the consultation. As I said earlier, I think the budget setting is quite exciting. It's quite difficult for other people to find it exciting because the council budget is probably not something that people are particularly interested in, to be perfectly honest.
Thank you. Councillor Coombs, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Page number 87, I was just really interested in this respondent's answer to the question, what ideas do you have for how the council could reduce spending? I just want to gauge some thoughts on their answer to question number 2. Reverse the annual ward elections decisions when the public consultation recently unanimously stated that less elections would save money, and why obviously it went to a vote. What are our thoughts now that we are receiving this feedback that went contrary to that public consultation? Thank you.
Not quite a budget issue. I completely understand where you're coming from. I don't think it was unanimous that was the choice. There was a variety of opinions that we received. I don't think it's part of the budget to discuss that particular point. Maybe we can take it to elsewhere. But Councillor Fitzgerald, maybe you want to answer that.
Councillor Kayam, I can give you a slight update and remind you what I actually said. And the issue is very much still on the agenda as far as DLUC are concerned. I'll be sharing that information soon. But in my closing remarks at Council, I said we would revisit it. So nothing has changed since that position, if that helps.
Sorry, thank you very much for that. I'd like to come back. I do think it is a budget issue, given the expenditure that takes place during elections in the best interest of the taxpayer, with due respect. So I'd just like to revert back with that comment. But thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. It'll be interesting to see what comes of this.
Thank you. There's no further questions on this section. Do we have any recommendations? No? Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix D, Reserve Strategy and Policy 23 to 24, starting on page 101 to 114 of the agenda pack. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce any area of this section? Are you happy to proceed to questions?
Please, Chair, if you go straight to questions.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Councillor Iqbal, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Paragraph 1.1, reserves are an integral part of sound financial management. They help the Council help plan for the future spending commitments, balance the budget and manage unpredictable financial pressures. My question is, do we have enough reserves to manage any unpredictable financial pressures in the near future?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we could always do with more. You're quite right, and we're going under a particularly difficult scenario at the moment. But Cecilia, if you'd like to answer specifically whether we have a sufficient reserve.
We probably don't. Most local authorities have higher levels of reserves than we have. We are recommended to maintain reserves of 4% of the net revenue budget, and we only just about have that. Again, referring back to the LGA finance conference I went to, the government is watching very, very closely local authorities' levels of reserves. There is a perception that some local authorities are hoarding money. I can categorically say that is not the case for Peterborough, and whether it's true for other local authorities, it is questionable. We have some very, very significant risks and some very high budget pressures, and the general fund reserve is the back pocket, in effect, to meet unforeseen risks and circumstances. And the reserves policy is aiming to increase general fund reserves from 4% to 5% to 6% over the life of the medium-term financial strategy. Whether we will achieve it or not, I don't know, but I would feel much happier with 6% than I am now at 4%.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any further questions on this section. Do we have any recommendations, please? Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix E, Equality Impact Assessment, starting on page 115 to 168 of the agenda pack. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce any area of this section, or are you happy to proceed to questions?
To questions, please, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, please? No questions? Do we have any recommendations? No? Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix F, Carbon Impact Assessment, starting on page 169 to 298 of the agenda pack. Are you happy to proceed to questions? Any questions? No questions? Any recommendations? No? Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix G, Treasury Management Strategy 23 to 24 to 25 to 26, starting on page 299 to 324 of the agenda pack. Happy to proceed to questions? Any questions, members? No questions. Do we have any recommendations? Okay. Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix H, Capital and Investment Strategy 2023 to 2025, starting on page 325 to 336 of the agenda pack. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce any area of this section, or are you happy to proceed to questions?
Questions, please,
I feel
Chair.
like I'm repeating myself now. Any questions? Do we have any recommendations? Okay. Can everyone please note we are now considering Appendix H, Capital and Investment Strategy 2020. Oh. It's the way the papers are stapled. Appendix I don't have that. We've got Appendix I, Dedicated Schools Grant and the Schools Budget, pages 337 to 346. Any questions? Any recommendations? Sorry? Okay. Now we have scrutinised the draft budget 2023 to 2024 and medium-term financial strategy. Do the committees have any further comments or recommendations? No? Councillor Jones, please.
What's a mausoleum thingy? I'm sorry, I've no idea. Somebody like to tell me what the mausoleum replacement is. I think I know what a mausoleum is, but what's a replacement for it?
A new one.
Touché.
The old one's full.
I was going to say it's an awful lot of money. What is it? Does it mean please, somebody explain what the mausoleum thing is.
Marco will.
We make a lot of money out of the mausoleums, would you believe? A lot of money out of the mausoleums, and I think there's something like 200 planned. It's not my cabinet portfolio anymore, but since I started them off, and we only replace them with empty ones. We don't bother replacing them with full ones. They fill up on their own.
You live and learn. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can everyone please note we are now considering the second improvement and assurance panel report, starting on page 3 to 50 of the supplementary agenda pack. I would like to invite Matt Gladstone, Chief Executive, to introduce the report, please.
Chair, I'm happy to go straight to questions. It's self-explanatory, I think, and in terms of the progress.
Do we have any questions, please? Do we have any recommendations? No? You've been let off lightly, Matt. If all questioning and discussion has finished, I would just like to thank you all for attending the meeting. As it appears to be no further questions, the meeting is now closed. Have a good evening and a very safe journey home.